Hello, Mayor Nenshi.
Hi, I'm just tweeting that I'm coming on air here.
Yes.
There we go.
There he's tweeting that, and I'm telling you, you can always call Mayor Nenshi, 974-TALK, 974-8255, or text him, 770-770. He is always happy to take your question. I've already got a text in here. Mayor, next year, can you shoot the fireworks for Canada Day off the Bow and other skyscrapers? Then everyone would see them. I thought off the Centre Street Bridge was pretty impressive.
I was pretty impressed. In the past couple of years, we've done them off of City Hall, off of the municipal building, which is great, and I love having everyone in Olympic Plaza. But the problem is you can't do them very high when they're downtown. And the Centre Street Bridge, I think, was great. I know there were a few people who were up on Scotsman's Hill who couldn't get a view, but I was kind of like, did you know they were off the Centre Street Bridge that you can't actually see from that particular vantage point? And I know there were some issues with traffic up in the Crescent Heights neighborhood, but we got thousands more people than could see them in the past.
Yeah.
And from what I heard, they were spectacular. You want to know the big secret, Angela?
What?
The one place you couldn't see them very well from was the stage at Prince's Island, where I counted down to them, so I couldn't see them very well.
Oh.
Because the angle of the stage was very poor.
Yes. So you were counting down?
I mean, I could see them over the tops of the trees,
right.
but I didn't get the whole show. So I asked people to send me their best pictures, and if people want to go on Twitter and just search Nenshi, my name, you'll see that hundreds of people sent me their shots, and there are some great shots in there.
Very impressive, yes. And I know the ridge was just packed with people, so you got to find that vantage point. But there's an idea: skyscrapers next year. I want to talk about a tragic story, of course, that we heard about yesterday. One person dying after rafting on the Bow River, the Harvey Passage. I know there's been major changes made to the weir, but that doesn't mean that area is safe.
That is exactly right. I mean, I feel awful about this, and my heart and my sympathies go out to the families and the friends and the people involved. This is a terrible, terrible situation, and we cannot, however, make the message clear enough, and I'm just going to say it again. The weir killed everybody, but creation of the Harvey Passage does not mean that the Bow River has become the Elbow River. It doesn't mean that it's a nice float for a sunny afternoon. The weir, or the new Harvey Passage, is intended for experts, intended for people who know what they're doing. So let's put it this way. I cannot be more clear than this. Today, that passage is safe for nobody. Doesn't matter what kind of an expert you are on, you should not be on it. Even in the best situation, that passage is not safe for guys like me who are recreational boaters. It is for people who know what they're doing, for rafters who are experienced whitewater rafters, and for expert kayakers. And I think that's what we need to be very clear on, and I don't think we could be more clear about this point.
Is there enough signage along the Bow River warning of the dangers ahead?
There's a warning buoy hanging above, and there's a great deal of signage. I do think that we could make the signage even more clear. There is one particular sign that I've been complaining about since it went up. And it's not clear if it was the province or the city. I just don't know the answer to that, responsible for this. But it says, Class 2 rapids this way, Class 3 rapids this way. Even for a guy like me who knows whitewater rafting, I would pause for a second and go, which is the easy one and which is the hard one? 2 is easier, by the way. But I think that we can always do a better job of that.
Do you think individuals should have to pay for a rescue if they find themselves on the Bow River when they're advised against it?
Well, it's an interesting question. We don't make people whose house burns down pay an extra fee for the fire department to come to their house. That's certainly part of the taxes you pay. But I really do think people have to listen to the fire department's advisories. One of the weird things about this that I'm struggling to get a real clear understanding of, but the Bow River is a federally regulated waterway. So we can ban people from the Glenmore Reservoir, for example, because it's under the city's control. The Bow River is not. And so we can really just issue advisories. My understanding is that we cannot actually ban people. Only the federal department, I think it's the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, can do that. But here's what I have to say. The fire department monitors that river every single day. They know exactly what the conditions are in that river. They're out in a boat on it. Listen to the fire department. If they tell you to stay off the river, stay off the river. Or, as a very wise woman was telling me in the break just before we started, look at the river. It is clearly not placid at the moment, and there's lots of submerged debris. And the water is very turbid. It's very opaque.
There's also been some talk of maybe criminal charges against someone who goes on the river, again against the advice of the fire department and finds themselves in trouble.
Well, once again, not under our control. We can issue a fine if there's a ban in place, but we don't have the right to ban on that particular waterway. So these are, I mean, I know that whenever we talk, it seems to get into conversations about the city's jurisdiction. But this is a big problem. And one of the things I know is the conversation is already happening between the city and the federal government to say, how do we streamline this? So if the city is making this advisory, it's easier for the federal government to rely on our information in order to issue a ban.
Leo, hi Leo, what's your question for the mayor?
Thanks for taking my call.
Hi,
I
Leo.
just heard on the news, and this is very concerning to me. There's plans to drill an oil well using hydraulic fracturing very, very close to Bears Paw Reservoir, the source of most of our drinking water. And I think the mayor and city council should look into this. We really have to start developing a policy regarding these kinds of activities close to the city.
Well,
we
Leo,
can't afford to have an accident if it involves the Bears Paw Reservoir.
Yeah, Leo, you're exactly right. There are actually, people are always surprised to learn this. There are actually many gas wells, and I believe oil wells as well, operating within the city limits. But this is the first new oil well that people have talked about in the community of Rocky Ridge. And the problem here, I know I sound like a broken record, but this is a really weird thing because it is entirely under provincial jurisdiction, even though it's within the city limits of the city of Calgary. This is a big problem, as far as I'm concerned. And in fact, the new MLA for that area, Sandra Jansen, has put forth a bill calling for more consultation and for the city to have more of a say in this, because right now, I know this sounds ridiculous, they don't even have to tell us, the province. They could just start drilling. And that's a big problem as far as I'm concerned.
not an expert on it, but the geological structure around the Bears Paw Dam is quite different than in other areas, and so this is very concerning.
Yeah, it's actually not that close. It's not that close to Bears Paw. It's a little further northeast of that, closer to the residential community in RockyRidge. But nonetheless, your point is obviously a valid one.
It's 3 kilometers down or south of Bears Paw Reservoir. Something like that, yeah.
This actually may be even a different one, Leo, so I'll look into that one.
It's completely different.
I'll look into that.
And they're using a different process,
they're
which
using
I
fracking.
really have to question.
Thank you. I will look into that. I appreciate that. In fact, if you wouldn't mind sending a quick note to my office, Leo, themayor@calgary.ca, that would be great.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, let's throw in a text here again. You can text the mayor 770-770. I think part of the problem is the boy that cries wolf. Do you know how many warnings we get from all levels of government? I think he's referring to the Harvey Passage.
Yeah. Well, okay, but how mad would you be if we didn't warn you?
Yeah.
And particularly if it's the fire department saying stay off the water, that is one I think we have to listen to.
Yeah. All right, let's get one more call in here before I have to take another break. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
What are your comments for the mayor?
Just want to congratulate him on making the cover of Reader's Digest. And I don't live in his jurisdiction, but I sure would like to. So I hope he has some designs on provincial or federal politics sometime in the future.
Thanks, Chris. You and my mom both were, and I think every waiting room of every dentist's office were excited about that Reader's Digest cover. I will say, let me say one thing about it, which is that, it was certainly very nice, but the thing that was important for me about it was talking about the issue of trust. And it just so happened that the week that came out, I met a guy from El Salvador, from a very rich family who works in construction, but he spends most of his time working on building schools and community centers and villages in El Salvador. And I said, congratulations, that's great work. And he said, something though, everyone gets it wrong. They think I'm here building schools for the sake of building schools. The real reason I'm doing it is because in my country with so much civil war and so much strife, people just don't trust each other. And when I make them sit together and put bricks down for a school, they start to build bonds of trust in the community. And that was exactly when that Reader's Digest issue came out. And it was about the issue of trust. Can we trust politicians? Can we trust our neighbors? And so on. I was happy that they said that, I'm Canada's most trusted man or whatever. But the most important thing I thought was, thank God we live in a country where we can trust one another, where we can actually rely on our neighbors to do the right thing. That's important to me. So I'm happy for that. And as to your second question, hey, I got a very big job. And I'm very happy in my current job, but thank you.
Yeah, well, maybe down the road you'll want some bigger and better challenges.
Well, I think the challenges we've got are probably the biggest and the most important, but I do appreciate it. Lately, apparently, I'm running for leadership of 3 different federal parties
Yeah, I think
simultaneously.
the Liberal Party has
I think
its sights set on
the
you.
Liberals and the NDP before they had it, and I think I'm supposed to replace Elizabeth May, and Prime Minister Harper will retire someday, so I guess I have to join a party first.
Thanks, Chris.
Anyways, you bet.
I do want to clear up something, though, with you, Mayor Nenshi, because it was in WinSport's application, and they talked about big box stores, and it came off that Mayor Nenshi does not like big box stores. Do you or don't you?
Yeah, no, what Mayor Nenshi doesn't like is power centers. I mean, who was in love with Crowfoot Centre or Shaughnessy? Before I was in this job, I spent a lot of time working sort of with the leading retailers in North America about retail strategies. It happens to be my background. And power centers are kind of a failed concept, right? They're bad for traffic. They're very difficult to navigate. It's really hard if you have to go to more than one store because you can't walk. You've got to drive, find parking, and so on. I once counted the number of traffic lights at West Hills, and I remember it was, something like 8 traffic lights between the residential area and Sarcee Trail. So that's really my concern is you got to stop building those. You've got to build more efficient forms of retail where the stores are together. Someone said, I'm not going to buy a 42-inch TV and ride the train. Well, you probably don't buy a 42-inch TV every week. At least I hope you don't, because then I want to know where your income is coming from. And of course, for trips like that, you're going to drive. But to force you to drive through 7 traffic lights to get a loaf of bread and a liter of milk at the Safeway is ridiculous. And we've got to figure out better ways of doing that. And other municipalities absolutely have.
All right, let's get in one call here. Hello, Chris.
Hey, how are you guys this afternoon?
Doing
Good.
well. What's your question for the mayor?
Heritage Drive, where the underpass is, it's been closed. That was closed for almost a month.
At Glenmore, you mean? Yeah.
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 Every year it's the same thing. Why can't we do something about that? Why don't we do something about that? Why isn't there a plan for something about that?
So there is a plan to mitigate it. It's funny that we were just talking about big box stores. The reason that's happening, my understanding is that when Deerfoot Meadows was built, it messed up all the drainage in the area. And the drainage now, instead of going around both sides of Deerfoot Trail, now pools in that area at Heritage and Glenmore. And so I know that the Transportation Department is looking at a fix for Heritage Drive there. Quite bluntly, it's not a super high traffic road, and so it hasn't made it to the top of their priority list. And some of the fixes they're looking at are super expensive. But I know that they are looking at trying to figure out how to fix the problem that was caused when we messed up the drainage in that area by having the development on the other side of Deerfoot.
Chris, thanks for the call. Let me try to get in a couple of more texts here. Can the mayor comment on rolling out the separate pedestrian and car crosswalks being in downtown wide? It's a great solution and will help traffic immensely.
I don't really know what that's about, but I'm happy to hear it's a great solution. That's the problem with text, not enough context.
Yeah, no kidding. It's only 140 characters. And I wonder if it's just having pedestrian crosswalks and then the timing. Sorry, if you want to be able to text some more details there. Here's another one. I'd like to see more enforcement through the construction zone along Deerfoot and 22X. I feel like the only one who obeys the speed reduction, that they're the only one who obeys the speed reduction, and it irritates me to continually get dirty looks by obeying the law.
The best way to get selective traffic enforcement in place, I'll take that one under advisement and I'll spread it along. But just for other listeners, if there's an area where there are consistent speeders, what you really want to do is contact your alderman or your community association and your community liaison officer from CPS and mention it to them, and we can get selective enforcement in those areas. On that particular one, I'll pass that word along.
We only have a minute left, and I don't think you'll be able to do this in a minute. Can we get an update on the southwest portion of the Ring Road, please? Can you also explain the reduction, 3% of traffic would end gridlock? Well, I'm not sure about that.
I do know what that means. I do know what that means. Update on the southwest Ring Road, you'll have to ask Minister McIver about what's going on there. I understand that negotiations with the Tsuut'ina Nation are going very well. The 3% argument is one that I've made on 14th Street in the past, which is if we have much better transit along 14th Street Southwest Corridor South, south of the reservoir. We can reduce the number of single vehicles by 3%. Believe it or not, that makes a giant difference to the gridlock in that corridor and the problems, particularly at the 90th Avenue intersection. How was that for fast?
You have packed a lot of information in this half hour. And you know what? We have been videotaping this interview. Later on today, we are going to put my interview with Mayor Nenshi on our website, qr77.com, as if you don't know what the mayor looks like. He is everywhere. But it's always kind of fun to watch him in action. Mayor Nenshi, thanks so much.
Thank you, and happy 100th Stampede, everybody. I'll be riding a horse on Friday morning, and I cannot wait.